Hey guys, this is the third part of the Startup Sales Induction program. Develop your sales collateral. If this is the first time you've seen one of these presentations, you might want to go back to part 1 and part 2. But if you're happy to roll, then keep going and enjoy the ride. We're going to cover 7 sections today. First will be features, benefits, and value. Next will be your elevator pitch, the networking pitch. Then we'll talk about phone scripts, then email introductions for that first meeting, and then what to cover in that first meeting or the first meeting agenda. And then finally, what are some of the ideas around a good slide presentation and how to convey your message very clearly. All right then, features, benefits, and value. What are they? And give me some examples. Firstly, features. A product feature is a description of what you're purchasing. A product benefit, though, is the distinguishing characteristics of a product or service that helps to boost its appeal to potential buyers. You can see that the benefits has a little bit more spice than just description of a product. Next is the customer value. Now, the customer value is usually personal to the customer, what they define as value for them. It could be defined as the progress that the customer hopes to make through using your product or service. Now, let's talk about an example. A Taylor Swift concert ticket. Now, the feature of a product could be 2 tickets for you and a friend to go to a Taylor Swift concert and see her perform live. Your seats might be 15A and 15B, only 10 meters from the stage. Now, we've just talked about the features of that product. So what are the benefits? Here are some examples. Number 1, you get to enjoy the singing and be part of the audience as part of this engagement. You get to also share the excitement with other Taylor Swift fans. Another one could be that Taylor has special guests and surprise songs that you're not expecting. That's also another benefit that a lot of people going to the concerts hope to see. And finally, the possibility of meeting Taylor in person. Awesome value. So how can we talk about the customer value? One example could be that a lot of people say is going to a Taylor Swift concert with my best friend was the highlight of our year. Taylor is on stage and only meters from us. It made me feel so special, especially when we made eye contact. It was awesome. So we've talked about the features of a product, for example, the ticket, the benefits of what the ticket provides for customers, but then the value is really that personal thing that takes you beyond just that transaction to an experience or to helping that customer go to a new state or experience. We're now going to talk about the elevator pitch. Now, the elevator pitch is a really old-fashioned term. It's been used for many years. It typically describes a scenario where you step in an elevator with a potential customer and you've got a very short amount of time to present your message or what you're selling to them and see where it might go. Its key thing is that it's limited to a very short period of time. So essentially it's, I would say, about 30 seconds at best. You've got to convey your message. Your pitch needs to be conceptual. Don't go into the detail. Focus on high-level concepts that can be easily understood quickly. You also need to be focused on value. Value from the customer's point of view. So just as we talked about the Taylor Swift concert, the value is from their perspective. How can you describe what you're selling from the perspective of the customer in terms of their value? You can also give examples of the types of customers that you service. So this again helps relate better to the customer. If they identify with any of those groups, then it'll be easier for them to understand what you're selling. Your pitch needs to provide a sense of intrigue. There's no way that you can give them a complete summary within 30 seconds and convey value. It's about a taste, a sample, something to whet their appetite to want more. So imagine this as the hors d'oeuvre before the main meal. Gets them interested, gets them started, but it doesn't satisfy completely. And the whole purpose of the elevator pitch is to get to that next conversation where you can have a face-to-face meeting, where you've got much more time to sit down with that customer and discuss more in detail about how you can help them solve their problems or create greater opportunities for them. Again, the elevator pitch is great to develop for your startup. What I would suggest is write down some of the key points that you want to share and then record it. And listen to that recording, think about it, make some edits, and then share that with some friends. Practice pitching with your grandma or younger brothers and sisters or your partner. Share that pitch with people that are not connected to your industry and see if they have confused looks or are like really interested in learning more about it. Once you get that interested look in their face, you know that, okay, I'm starting to get this right. So give it a shot and you'll enjoy your time. We're going to cover now the networking pitch. I have to say that the networking pitches that I've seen, many of them, if not most, are pretty bad. The main reason is that when you get a startup founder talking to you at an event or after an event, they want to tell you everything that's important to them. They want to tell you everything they know and all the most important things in their life, because they're going through massive changes in their life and massive experiences emotionally and personally, and this is their opportunity for a release. Unfortunately though, doing that in a networking pitch is not the right thing to do. Hire a counselor if you need to get it off your chest. But a networking pitch has a very specific purpose, and that's to create opportunities for your product that you're selling. And here are some of the distinctions. It needs to be around 2 to 3 minutes. Now that's 2 to 3 minutes of a conversation between you and your partner. So don't think of it as a 2 to 3 minute talk, but as a dialogue or exchange. If it goes beyond that, then you're walking on thin ice, because the person is likely to get uninterested if it goes too long. Because in many of these networking events and opportunities, there are lots of other people in the room. Their eyes are wandering. There are other people wanting to catch up with that person, and you get distracted and they get distracted. So you don't have a lot of time. It's actually, to be honest, harder than the elevator pitch, because you have to adapt it and to focus on the key concepts. So the key concepts will be similar to your elevator pitch, but it gives you a bit more time to give some practical examples, if you can. The other thing is it has to be adaptable to your audience. Think about their age and also the types of roles that they are doing. It needs to be relatable to them. You wouldn't be going into the details of technical issues with a C-level executive. Similarly, if you're talking to a millennial who's a coder and just has been working that for the last few years, you're not going to talk about deep change management issues with them, because they won't relate to it. And finally, it needs to have a call to action. The difference is that at least 80%, maybe 90% of the people you're networking with aren't going to be the end customer. However, they do know people who can. So these contacts are essential for increasing your network, getting intelligence on who you could approach to within their organization, or who are their friends that could be buyers of your product or service. So again, it's not the action may not be a pitch to them, but it could be an opportunity to have an introduction to the right buyer. The email introduction can be a challenge, mainly because you're sending it to somebody that you don't yet have a relationship with. There are some things you can control and adjust to, such as the audience. Are they a senior executive, or are they a technical expert? What's the particular message you're wanting to do? But it often is a risk where you don't know what they're going to do or they'll respond at all. But what I've put together are 3 basic steps that you can start with that have given me a high success rating for getting those first meetings. So let's cover that now. The first step is identifying the relationship that you have with the person you're contacting. Now, this sometimes requires a little bit of imagination and creativity, but what you're trying to do is give a justification in the very first sentence about why they should keep reading this email. Their brain is filtering out, is this a robot sent email? Is this something that I'm getting as spam? And you've got only a couple of seconds to really put some keywords in that people will respond to. I'll give you some examples. It could be there's a third party, a third person that are known to both you and the contact. It could be a former colleague or a friend or someone within the organization that suggested that you reach out to them. If that person is well regarded by the person you're emailing, then there's a good chance they'll keep reading and be positively inclined to your message. So find that connection. Sometimes you have to be more creative. So at times where I've found somebody on LinkedIn and there's nobody that can introduce me, but I do have a number of common connections with them. So I'll highlight that and say, look, we seem to have a lot of people in common, but we haven't yet met, and things like that. So find a way to at least create some kind of connection with them, however strenuous. The next sentence needs to explain what you do, the value you bring in their eyes, and what you want from them. So be very clear about what the purpose of your contacting them is. The easier and simpler you explain that, and the easier it reads, the better they will respond to that message. Don't be waffly in your words. Just keep to the point. Be very, very clear and simple in the way you write, and be economical in the words that you use. If you can say the same meaning in 5 words, then do that instead of 15. That's as best I can say, because people are scanning emails these days, as you probably will too, and they only have a few seconds to determine if this is worth continuing. Now, the last thing is to propose to meet at a specific time or to give a specific invitation. The more specific you are in your invitation, the more they'll likely respond and positively respond. If you ask them, could we meet on the 30th of March at 2 p.m. and that particular date is about 10 days away, you focus them on the question of whether they are available at that time, not on whether they want to meet with you or should meet with you. So I found that this has helped me leapfrog over that question of, do I need to meet with this person? If I ask a specific time, can you meet with me at this time for a coffee? Then they'll likely respond. It could be another invitation, but it has to be very specific. Can I speak with you at this time in regards to this conference coming up? Can I talk to you about this? I'm publishing an article on this date and I would like to speak to you by next Tuesday to get your feedback and insight. So be very specific, because they'll they'll respond to that. It doesn't take much brain work to respond to that. All right, now let's talk about cold calling and phone scripts. I just have to say that cold calling is not easy for anybody. I've been doing it for 20 years. It's still hard. When I think about the cold calling I need to do today, it doesn't fill me with love or excitement. I don't like doing it, even though I've been successful at it. It's not a natural thing to want to do. I haven't met anybody in my career that's not crazy that loves cold calling. It's not natural. But how can we do it? We've got to do it. If you've got a startup, you're a founder, then you need to be picking up the phone if you want your business to survive. So here are a few suggested tips that are basic, that should get you going and get you some early success. The first thing to say is, once you've introduced yourself, "Hi, it's Paul Davies from such and such. Have I got you at a bad time?" Asking that question first up, it helps you understand whether they're in a meeting, or if they're on holidays, or if they do have a couple of minutes to speak with you. Now, a lot of the times when I speak to people, they're already in a meeting, and the worst thing you can do is force a conversation with somebody for 2 to 3 minutes when you're talking all the time and they just want to get off the call because they're in a meeting. They feel embarrassed because there's other people listening to the call, so they don't want to cut it off, but they're not going to be listening to, and it's not going to go well for your introduction. "Have I got you at a bad time?" is a way to make them relax and show to the person that you're considerate of their time, and it's you're looking for an opportunity to speak with them at a good time. Give it a try. I've been doing it for a while and it really works. It puts you at ease and it puts them at ease, and it's surprisingly, when you say that, they're more likely to actually give you a couple of minutes first. Once they've given you permission to keep going, then be really clear about what you're calling about. Is this a response to their inquiry? So have they gone to your website and filled out a form, or put their details down for some white paper? Or are you following up an email that you sent them? This is really good because it forces the person to remember, okay, so I did get an email from you a week ago. Okay, that's what this is about. I've got some context about what I'm doing. Or if they haven't received the email, or if they've forgotten about it, it gives you more authority to explain what the call is. It gives you more airtime to explain the purpose and what you're doing. So keep a clear purpose. Base it on something that has happened previously, so they can remember it. And then have a clear invitation. So you're wanting to meet with them for coffee in the next 5 days, and ask them to let you know when they're free, or this is what you want to do, and make it very clear. And finally, if they've agreed to that, then just confirm the action. Say, look, I'll drop a calendar invite in our diaries so that we can catch up then, and then you've finished the call. Ideally, even some of the most detailed calls can be done in about 90 seconds if you direct and to the point, because you've got their full attention and they're responding. So follow this process. Again, practice with people, practice with your mentors, or practice with your colleagues, or people that aren't connected, just friends that you know, because the more you practice, the easier it'll be to talk about these things. Again, the elevator pitch, the networking pitch, and the phone scripts are not, you're not selling, you're not doing the sale right then. You're creating that opportunity to sell in the near future. If you try to sell to them over the phone, unless it's something that people will buy over the phone, then you're wasting your time. You're trying to build the foundation of an opportunity or sale. So don't get into selling the whole product. focus on what you're trying to achieve, such as the face-to-face meeting or the next step in the sales process. Here are some thoughts that I believe are important when you meet with a senior executive for the first time. The first meeting should be firstly about opening a relationship with the senior executive. If there's no relationship, nothing will happen. We do not buy from people we do not trust or we have no reasonable relationship with, or at least a common understanding. One way to get started is to give a brief introduction to your business and product. So do that in a short amount of time, within 30 seconds, so that they can get a clear, quick understanding of what you're about. Keep in mind that senior executives are very busy and they might have even forgotten the purpose of their meeting and what you're all about before you meet with them. So quickly remind them to jog their memory so that you can get started. As best you can, try to seek understanding from the executive. So try to turn the tables back to them and to ask them why they agreed to meet or what they would see as success from coming from this meeting. And get them to talk about the progress they'd like to make in the coming months and quarters. If you do this, the next steps will naturally occur. You'll either know quickly or that either your product is the right fit for them or not. And even if it's not the right fit for this buyer, if you've built a good relationship, they'll be a good endorser to other people within the organizations, as well as their contacts outside the organization. If the meeting's gone really well, then they will give you the names of the people that they need to meet with. Here is an example or template that you could use in the first meeting with a senior executive. Firstly, you should show appreciation for the time they've given up to meet with you. In that 20 minutes they've given up to meet with you, that's genuine time that they're missing from doing important jobs. They've had to put other things on hold in order to meet with you and your organization. So be grateful for that opportunity and recognize that they've got lots of things on their agenda. You could start the conversation by saying, our organization or our startup exists to help companies do blah. So keep it to one sentence, keep it direct and to the point. We're here to help you do such and such. And whether that's to reduce risk in their equipment or to provide greater safety or to provide increased improvement to their staff retention, whatever it is, be direct and to the point so they know exactly what it is. And this is really important. To reinforce that, give them a few examples of how this works. You might say, typically we solve the following problems, and give examples that relate to the types of customers you have already or the ones that you hope to have. Now sometimes people are very afraid of being too direct because they worry that it will kill the sale if the customer identifies that they're not suitable. But this is actually really important, because if it's not going to be a customer, then it's better to drop that opportunity straight away than to let something linger on for a long time, taking up time of yours in the future. If they say within the first 5 minutes, hey, look, that's not actually our game actually because of these things, or we just invested $5 million in a system that does exactly what you're telling me, then that's great. That's really good, because you've then identified this is the customer and their situation. Then you can decide what to do next. However, many times it gives you the opportunity to ask the customer, after you've given a quick summary, for them to tell you a bit about their organization. Now, the more specific you are, the better the responses they'll give. So don't ask a generic question like, can you tell me more about your company? But be very specific and indicate the amount of research you've done in that organization before the meeting. It shows interest and respect for their time. When they ask you questions, keep your answers to the point. So you might give them, say, the short answer to your question is yes or no, and then you can then elaborate more if they've got the time. But yeah, be direct when you're responding. Don't waffle on. Be very approachable in that way. And lastly, agree on the next steps you want in that meeting. So once they've said, look, I think this there could be some opportunity here. I need to run it past my team. Why don't we reconvene in a couple of weeks to have a look at that again? So then you agreed, like, let's catch up for coffee in 2 weeks, and I'll put that in the calendar. So you agree on what you'll do, and it's very clear to both you and the customer. That's essentially an ideal first meeting. Now, meetings vary in infinite ways, but if you have an approach that you're trying to follow, then it makes it the chance of success much higher. Now, there's one last thing you can do just before the end of the meeting, and then that is when you're just leaving, say, look, I'd like to just give a quick summary of our discussions and the points we've talked about, and I'll send that to you in the next hour or so. Would you mind reviewing that in the next 24 hours and just writing back to me confirming that's correct? You just want them to let you know if we're both on the same track. What that does is it asks them in person to confirm what you've discussed in person and to lock it in. Now, this doesn't bind them to committing to anything, but it confirms to both of you that what you both agreed on, so that commitments made on both parts are kept. And I've seen this occur, and when this has occurred in a done the right way, it works really well. Here are some suggestions on your slide presentation. Firstly, images are always best. We don't want death by PowerPoint. And on that note, limit the words that you have. Keep it really short. You do not want to have lots and lots of words where people strain to read. And what I suggest is keep your key messages to just 5 slides. Okay, so here's an example. Slide number 1. This is who we are. This is our organization. This is the products we are selling. And this is the value that we bring to our customers. Here are 2 to 3 examples or stories. Again, keep it visual with photos or logos. And finally, what you do for customers. So paint them a picture of the onboarding process that you have with your customers. Give them a story that they can relate to and go from there. Keep it really simple. Whether this is a webinar or whether this is a face-to-face meeting, a boardroom presentation, or whether you've just printed out these slides, keep it as simple as possible so that no matter who you're meeting with, they'll quickly understand what you're trying to achieve. Okay, here are a few next steps. Check out my sales templates. You can find them on the startupsalescoach.net website and go to the section on templates. If you do that, there's a lot of examples of the types of things we've covered, such as the first meeting agenda, the phone scripts, the business value and customer value. So go through that and get yourself started. There's actually a bunch of really good email examples that you can go through to get meetings. Personally, they've given me over 80% success rate when I've been approaching organizations for the first time. Most importantly, you need to adapt these templates to your own. These need to be changed to your style and your communication and your ways of doing things. Don't put my words into your mouth. And remember the final 10 to 20%. That's, as I said, that's the customization that you need to do. If you just borrow a template from the website or from the internet, chances of success are very low. And finally, deploy, review, and improve. The whole purpose is to get started with something that's going to work and that you can improve and scale over time.